And this is Entrepreneur Ready. This episode is sponsored by the How to Start Something Online Accelerator. Kim, I'm excited to be here with you. I want to jump right in. What happens after school for students with disabilities?
Well, not very much. Around here, there's a term called falling off the cliff. Um, because when students with disabilities are in high school, there are hopefully lots of support. There's lots of support and programs and resources. But once they leave, even if they've had a lot of training, there's really very, very little for them out in the outside world. And, there's about an 80% unemployment rate for people with disabilities.
What did it feel like for you to watch that as a teacher?
It's heartbreaking because, I was a teacher for 40 years. And so more than half my life, I was teaching and I loved this community of people with disabilities and, really put my heart and soul into my teaching and really tried to really prepare my students, for life outside of after high school. And I live in the community where I taught, so I would run into my students and their families after they left high school, and I could see regression. I could see that they were sitting at home isolated, and it just did not sit well with me. So I
So,
just felt there was something pulling at me that I needed to do something.
tell us about that moment. Tell us about what happened.
Well, we had started this little coffee business called Sleepy Coffee at the high school, Sleepy Hollow High School, where I taught, and that was in 2016. And you know, it was a great opportunity because I was able to teach all kinds of employment skills and every kind of skill through the business, and um, and it really changed the culture of our school. We really became a much more inclusive school, which made me very happy. Um, and then the pandemic hit, and of course, everything shut down. And so when we finally got back to school, I was that's when I really noticed that my former students who graduated were really hit hard because if they had a program, it was gone. If they had a job, it was gone. And they didn't have school anymore. They didn't have us anymore. And they were sitting at home isolated. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off. I had been kicking around the idea of maybe doing something in the community when I retired, but I wasn't really sure what that would look like. And it finally just hit me, like I said before, I felt something was pulling in me in another direction, that there was something else I was supposed to do. And so I decided to retire in June of 2021. Very hard decision because I loved my job. It was more than a job to me; it really was a calling. And but I decided to do it and just took a risk to see if I could really pull this off.
What did you say out loud to yourself then?
Probably, are you crazy? Because I didn't know. I had no idea, how to start a business. I had no idea what the business was even going to look like or be. But I just felt like I know it sounds crazy, but I just felt like the universe was telling me there were so many signs that were telling me that just go for it. What have you got to lose? And so that's what I did. I started very small and step by step, little by little, um,
So
things
say
came
that
together.
for us one more time. So you're sitting in your living room and you just decide,
Yeah, well, that's pretty much how it was. I was sitting in my living room with my contractor actually, who had been working on my house, and I hadn't really told anybody what I was thinking. And and I said to him, I have this crazy idea. Can I run it by you? And he said, yeah. And so I told him, and he didn't think I was crazy. He got really excited, and he said to me, "Whatever it turns out to be, I want to be the one to build it for you. I want to." And so that was like the first time I felt like, okay, like maybe it's okay to talk about it and tell people what I'm thinking, and because for a long time I was afraid to.
So you had ran the program inside of the school, and there's
Yes.
this moment where you say, I'm going to start a business.
Yeah. And,
What happens next?
after I retire or when I'm still teaching?
Yeah.
Well, while I was still teaching there, I initially had plans to work with to plan something with another fellow teacher of mine, and that kind of fell by the wayside. And I just, with everything I've done in my career, I've always felt like if I have an idea, it just always works out better if I just do it and I don't depend on other people.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of what happened. Like I said, after the pandemic, I remember we came back from Christmas break, and that's when I said, you know what, I think it's time. So that's when I decided to, put my letter in that I wanted to retire, and knew that, I had 6 more months of school, and
So what
but
did you
that's
do first to start the business?
um the first thing I did was, well, there's two things I did. First I wrote my business plan as best I could. Um, and I initially was thinking of doing a bed and breakfast. And I even, looked at some properties in our area and things like that. But what I found was that there's no zoning for a bed and breakfast in our community. So, and
Mm.
then it hit me like, why am I looking for something else? I started with coffee. That's what my students wanted to do. Let's go with coffee. And so, once I had decided that, I wrote my business plan and had to decide what kind of a business do I want to be. And I decided that I wanted to be a nonprofit, so that because I wasn't looking to make money off of this business. The main focus of this business was to give my students and other young people an opportunity to work, and that's
So
really what
the
it came down to.
so the vision, describe the vision for Sleepy Coffee too.
The vision was to have a place within our community, and that would be beautiful and would have exceptional product and amazing customer service, by my students. Because what I wanted people to feel when they walked in here was not that this was the special ed coffee shop, so we don't have to really have high expectations. I wanted people to be blown away by seeing what amazing employees these people are, and what wonderful human beings they are, and that they deserve and want everything that we all want, and they should have it. And so that's what I set out to do.
So when you joined the program, what happened? What changed for you?
Well, I felt very, I really did enjoy the whole journey of starting the business, but in the beginning, it was just me, and I was very isolated and alone, and I felt like, I had nobody really supporting me. So when I joined the program, all of a sudden there was this community of people, that all were like-minded, and we're all trying to do similar things in their own way. And so having the support was amazing. And it also helped me in the beginning, with, the beginning phases, that, it really made me think about what I was doing, what I wanted to do, why I was doing it. Um, and it really made me kind of stop and slow down and really think things through, and ask myself, like, I've already started. Have I done this correctly? Do I need to change this? What can I learn from this? And so it really kind of gave me a really good foundation in the beginning. And and then all the things that I hadn't done yet were part of the program. So, the program and all of you were there to help me step by step the rest of the way.
Talk about how conversations changed you and changed the venture, the business.
Well, I had some fear in the beginning that I wasn't sure that we were going to be accepted by the community, or, um, and I say the community, I was thinking just locally, and now we have so many followers and customers from all over all over the country and the world. But I was afraid of being accepted,
Mm,
and so getting out there and kind of telling people what I was thinking of doing and getting their feedback, I started to realize that there was not just from families of children with disabilities, but the public in general. It was something people were looking for, something to feel good about. You know,
mm,
they when you walk into our shop, people come in here to get away from what's going on in the world, or they just want to feel good, or they want to be uplifted. And I started to realize that, you know, we were going to fulfill a need, not just for my former students, but for everybody, you know, because everybody gets something good out of coming here.
yeah. Talk to me about this process. How has customer discovery and getting a prototype in front of people, how has it changed you as a creator, an innovator, or a leader?
It's given me a lot more confidence in myself. You know, I look back where I started. You know, growing up, I was very, very, very shy, and and did not have a lot of self confidence. And now I feel like I'm a completely different person now, because you know, I've realized that, you know, I can have an idea and I can have a dream, and I can make it happen, and I can bring it into reality. And so that confidence has allowed me to try other new things, and you know, kind of just think outside of the box, and
Give me an
not be.
example of, I know you did prototype meetings and then you did a pop-up. Give me example, tell us how those accelerated you.
Oh well, the pop-ups really I mean, we did small pop-ups in the beginning. I didn't even know if we'd have a storefront. I didn't really know where we would land. But so in the beginning, we did a lot of just community events, you know, a street fair or a block party, or, you know, anything like that. We would be there. And I had already hired my staff. So they were out there with me. And so it helped them get used to dealing with the public and speaking. And, you know, I have some employees that are nonverbal or that use devices, and they had never done anything like this. They never thought they would have a job, you know. So it helped them, and it really I watched them blossom even before we opened. But it also gave the public an opportunity to get to know us,
Mm,
and to learn about our mission. And so our once we went from the community events, we were very lucky to there was a small space right next door to where our shop was being built, and we took that over for a year, and we set up a merchandise store. And so I was able to get my staff in there, and start training. They learned how to use, you know, the POS system, and to do customer service and inventory. And in the meantime, people were coming in, and they were learning, you know, our story. And so really, by the time all those things just helped move us along, and got our name out there and our story out there. So by the time we opened, we had such a large following that, you know, all that stuff we had taken care of through those experiences.
yeah. The arc of building customer relationships from your first conversations
Yeah,
to the pop-up and getting to these first revenue and donation things before the store is even there.
yeah, yeah. And being a nonprofit, that's very important, you know. So you know, I did a lot of grant writing. I'm still doing it, but in the beginning, I was doing a lot of grant writing. And, you know, all these pop-ups, they were fundraisers, really. You know, they were helping bring some initial revenue in. And so it was just a win-win. It was a win for the customer. It was a win for us. And I'm just so thankful that that's how it worked out, you know, that we were able to do that.
By the time you got out of the program, what were your biggest wins in that phase of growing your business?
Oh boy. I think, you know, well, we're located in Sleepy Hollow, New York, so Halloween is huge here. So I think we opened in June, and our first October here was, I mean, we didn't know what hit us. And and we had we had influencers coming in and posting on TikTok about us. And so we had just hundreds of people, every day coming in and that, were following us. And we were kind of like in shock, because, there was a whole world out there that was talking about us. And so I think, that first October, I think I realized like, okay, people want people want something like this.
Mm.
And also, I also realized how far we have to go, not just us, but there have to be more businesses like this because we have a waiting list of over 100 people that want to work, and there's nowhere for them to work, and that breaks my heart because I wish I
What
could
do
hire.
employers get wrong about employing individuals with disabilities?
I think that there's still a lot of stereotypes around. I think, I have some employees who are nonverbal who are some of the most brilliant people I've ever met. But, there's the stigma of if you can't talk, then you must not be intelligent,
Mm.
or a person with autism, may have some behaviors that are different from, the general public. So that's a big part of what we do too. We educate every day, everybody that comes in here, especially new people. We educate them about who we are, and we're an example. We're a living example of doing it right. And I think slowly we're changing people's perceptions, but
What do you wish employers would see?
I wish that they would see that, we're all the same. And we all have something that's challenging to us. Nobody escapes
Mm.
that in their life. Some people just have things that are more visible, um, but I just wish that they wouldn't judge somebody just based on what they see, that they would get to know the person. And that's happening too. People come in, they know all my employees by name now, and but there's still a lot of people out there, and I think also they're afraid it's going to be too much work. They're going to it's going to be too difficult.
Mm.
And my feeling is that if somebody was willing to take one person off our waiting list, I would gladly, you know, help with the transition, help them with that, be a resource for them. We have volunteers that work with us that also, would be willing to go out to a business and help support them if they would just take that one person. And, we
And
run
you have 100 people waiting for
yes,
jobs.
yeah.
We're going to dive into that in a little bit. Tell me about one person whose life has changed because of Sleepy Coffee too.
Um, well, the one that comes to mind is Ella. Ella was in my class. I had her as a teacher, but I didn't have her the first 4 years of high school. She's a young woman with Down syndrome, and her parents really wanted her to be in the general ed classes. I ran a self-contained program. So, to their credit and her credit and the school's credit, she worked very hard and she earned a regular local diploma. But where she was lacking was her life skills and communication and those kinds of things. She had an aide that worked with her. And so students are able to stay till they're 21. And so she stayed a extra couple of years, and they placed her in my program. And I remember the first day she came to the door with her aide. Her aide was speaking for her. And I said, you know what? In here, we all speak, for ourselves, whatever way, that is. And so I said, so Ella, when you're ready to come in, you come in, but I want you to speak for yourself. So it took a while, but she came in, and she just really excelled at everything. I just watched her little by little become more confident and more outgoing, and then she would begin to speak more. And by the time she graduated, she was kind of like a peer mentor to some of the other students in the program. She had really come a long way. And and when I was thinking of starting the business, I went and did home visits to all my former students. So I remember going to her house and I had a little presentation, I did about this crazy idea of starting a business. And her parents broke down and started crying because, like I said at the beginning, there's that falling off the cliff. They didn't have any idea what she would do, or anything. And they finally had an answer in this business. So
Mm,
um, that was very reassuring to me too. Like, I had the support of the parents, and and now Ella just got promoted. She is a peer job coach here.
wow.
So she's coaching her coworkers, and she's got a little raise. And and that's my whole thing. I really um, try to foster independence with all of them. That if there's something they can do, then they need to do it. Nobody's going to do it for you, And if there's something you need to learn, we're always learning here. Like, I feel like I'm still teaching. It's just in a different way.
Mm.
Um,
So
Teaching the employees, but I'm also teaching the public.
right. Yeah. And how would you describe what you're seeing happen between employees and the public?
It's magic. It's beautiful. When we had the little business at the high school, um, the student body built us this beautiful mobile cart, and that's when I knew, like, wow, they've been watching us, and they value what we're doing, and so they gave us this gift. And 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 once we started using that, the best part for me was watching the relationships build between the general ed students and my students. And there was this respect now for my students, and they would have conversations just like two teenagers. It wasn't, a person with or without a disability. And that's what I see at the shop also. I see just that magic happen. We have our story up on our wall. So when people come in while they're waiting for their coffee, they can read our story, and you can see, like, somebody will come in a certain mood, and then they just soften after they read the story, and they look around, and they'll come up to me. Sometimes they're in tears, like, I didn't realize, you know, what kind of a place this was, but
And when you summarize your story, how do you do that?
I just um I just feel that we are, yes, we're a nonprofit, inclusive business. We train and employ people with disabilities, but we're so much more than that. We are really kind of like a beacon in a very, tough world right now, and kind of like a refuge. And it's I just feel like we've created this amazing little space in the world, and we're changing the world, where we are. And there's kind of a ripple effect, that people leave here, they kind of take a little bit of that with them, and they spread it
Mm.
where they are.
Yeah, holding space for the other. We've gotten
Yeah,
so bad at that, all of us, right? It
yeah,
feels like you're stewarding that ability, right?
hmm,
So
yeah,
tell us a little bit about where Sleepy Coffee 2 is today. Where are you today? How many employees? Just kind of give us an idea of.
sure. So we've been open about a year and 9 months. Right now, we have 21 employees who have a variety of disabilities and a variety of skill levels. And like I said, we have a waiting list. If I look now, it's probably over 100 people, because I've over the weekend I had people coming in and asking me or calling me about jobs, and I always encourage them to fill out the application. I keep every application. I have a big file cabinet full of them. Um, and we have, I want to say, probably about 10 volunteers that work with us. A lot of people who are retired, who are in the field. So we have a speech therapist that volunteers. We have a school principal that volunteers. So we're very lucky in that they can step right in, and they understand what we do. And we also have, because we've kind of frozen our hiring right now, our paid employment, we have other people with different abilities that come in and volunteer for us. So I have a group of 3 older women. I call them the Golden Girls, and they come in once a week and they bake, and I'll give them a couple of recipes to bake for me, and they love it, and we love them. So you know, so I
What
feel very good.
impact are you most proud of?
The impact I'm most proud of is that we're changing people's perceptions and we're making a kinder, more inclusive world. And
Mm,
that's really the goal of all this.
mhm.
Um, because sometimes I wonder where kindness went, and it's not that hard, you know. But sometimes people have to be reminded.
What's the hardest part of building this business? What's the hardest part?
The hardest part, I guess, because I was a teacher, I'm a little bit of a control freak. um, I've had to learn to delegate and let go of some of that control. Um, but that's a good thing because it's opening up other things for me, and it's giving people here more responsibility. And I have a couple of managers that are amazing, and I could not do this without them. And so I see them really wanting to take on more, take some of the stuff off my plate, and they want to show me that they can do it, and they do it very well. Um, so I guess it's that, and also just I'm always concerned about the financials, being that we're a nonprofit, and I, we had a couple of very lean months, January and February, for all businesses around where we are. So I had to cut hours and I had to, do certain things to keep us afloat, but we made it through, and now we're back into our busy season. And so that's something I think that'll always be part of the business. I don't think there'll ever come a point, unless we get like $1 million donation or something, where you know I'm not thinking about that on some level.
Yeah, talk to me. What have you learned about valuing what you do?
um well, I think in the beginning I was willing to just give give away my time for free, give away my talent for free, for us to do free events, things like that. But now I feel like we've established ourselves and we've come through with every promise we made, and then some. And so now I feel like, we need to be valued too, um, so now, we're renting our space, we're renting out, we're doing other things where people pay, and it brings in revenue for us, because we do a lot of things and we do them well, and there's value in that, and there's value in the people here. um,
I
this
love that.
this business wouldn't be what it is without the people that are here every day working.
So, talk to me about earned revenue and nonprofits, earned revenue. How are you thinking about that? How are you thinking about that for the future?
So, when we opened up initially, we were just a coffee shop, and that we were focusing on that because we were all learning that. We all came into this learning together. Um, and we didn't have our baking room wasn't open yet. But now, we, besides the, serving the coffee and the baked goods, we are also creating events here. So we do monthly tea parties where we transform the shop into a tea room, and everything's baked from scratch. It's very high level, and we're doing other kinds of events here, and we're renting our space. And the days that we're closed, we're thinking of renting maybe our kitchen as a ghost kitchen, or a training program could come in and train their um, their clients on, all the things about working in a shop, and not just a coffee shop, but they could learn the register, they could learn, all the different aspects of the business. So we're just trying to figure out ways to, to expand what we do to bring more revenue in.
Talk to me a little bit about, it seemed like you're thinking about how to help other employers. So
Yes.
when you think of the future for Sleepy Coffee 2 and your vision of impact, what's next?
So there's a couple things. First of all, we've been approached to open another location, which is something we're thinking about. So that's one way to help with, with the people on our waiting list. But the other part is that I really want to help other businesses become more inclusive. Um, and
What would
so
you do?
we've been thinking about inviting, maybe just start on our block, Beekman Avenue, and invite and then in the evening, invite business owners in, and just explain to them what our model is, because, we run things a little differently than other places, but
Can you
it works. And
explain the model? So if
okay.
I was a business owner, I could kind of see how this might work for me.
hmm So we run 3 shifts a day. And everything is part-time. So we have a shift from 7:30 to 10:30 in the morning, and then 10:30 to 1:30, and then 1:30 to 4:30. Because most of our employees, because of their challenges, an 8-hour day is too much. So 3 hours seems to be the sweet spot that we found. Um, and
Well, I thought my phone was off, so.
um, and also just a lot of techniques that I use in the classroom I use here. We have behind the register, we have all kinds of little cues. Our register is set up where it takes them through each question to ask the customer, so that they don't get flustered, or if they forget what to say, it's all there. There's always somebody in the background in case they get stuck with whatever they're doing. Somebody can step in and help them. Um, and you know, so
So you have this model.
yeah,
Have you thought about taking that to the world?
yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we wanted to do, is to invite these business owners in and show them, and that if they were to take somebody, it wouldn't be necessary. It wouldn't be for a full day. It would be for a few hours, a couple times a week. So it's not a big time. We're not asking for a lot of time. And also we would build in support. But I know that eventually, if done correctly, we could fade that support, and that person could be independent. And so that's kind of our goal. And I've also been approached. A lot of people come in here and ask me, how did I do this? And they, can I sit with you? Can I ask you questions? Whatever. And I always say yes. So through a conversation with you, Pam, we've been thinking about creating some kind of a course where people can come and learn, you know, how it's done. And it doesn't have to be a coffee shop. It could be any kind of business, but the framework is the same, and the
Hmm.
support is the same.
How
Um,
to employ individuals with differing abilities to grow your businesses
yeah.
and to impact your community.
Yes, and my employees are rarely out. They're always on time. I mean, there's all those soft skills that you want an employee to have. They have. I mean, they're
If you were
dependable.
making the slogan for this new course, what would it be? What would
Oh,
you say to business owners in a one sentence?
oh my gosh, I don't know what the slogan would be. I just know that once they have the experience, they're going to be hooked. They're going to be hooked. It's just getting over that. that fear, that apprehension, or those stereotypes that, maybe they've never, interacted with somebody with a disability. So it's just breaking down those barriers. And
I
I,
think
I
I think isn't that true? I think that's what the pro at How to Start Something, that's what we try to do. There's so much
yeah.
fear around things, but once you
Hmm.
walk into it with support and people and roadmaps and people that have already done it and
Yeah.
get you, then your blind spots go away and all of a sudden you're running down the road in your own way.
Right.
Right? And like you
It's
said, the
true.
transformation is just overwhelming and you're like,
Yes.
whoa.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this. There's people out there that are listening, like the people that call you and say, can you sit down with me? I want to do this in my community. But if you
Hmm.
were talking to someone that's thinking they have an idea, kind of like you, they just felt like there's just something more they were called to, like,
Yeah.
because you've had like what, like you've had multiple things now you've made an impact in. What would you say to that person? What is key for them to know that you now know?
I would say don't kind of shrug that off like, oh, it's not the right time, or I can't do that, or whatever. If you have an idea, don't ignore it, because for me, I couldn't ignore it. Something wasn't letting me ignore it. But I would say don't ignore it, and don't wait, like say, oh, you don't have to wait till after you retire. You can do it at any time. You can do it any time in your life. So don't ignore it, and just start. Do something, however small it is, because I remember like when I was still teaching, and we came back from the pandemic. We were a very huggy group. We would hug, the staff would hug each other in the morning and before we left, and we couldn't hug anymore for a while. So I started baking. I didn't know why I was baking, because I hadn't baked in a long time. Well, what I was doing, like I think subconsciously, was creating the menu for the shop, because that's what we sell now. And I was recipe testing, on my staff. Um, so I would just say, don't, that little voice, don't ignore it, and start small and just go for it. And what's the worst that can happen? You'll be right back where you started. But
When
you
you
know,
look back, you had some pretty big inspirations in your life. How, what do you think now of some of the dots that have connected?
I just feel like this has always been what I was supposed to do. I mean, I definitely know I was supposed to be a special ed teacher. Um, and I knew that very early on, like when I was 12 years old. My best friend's brother um, had multiple disabilities, and our whole neighborhood rallied around their family, and that I got hooked, and then the ironic part is, when I became a teacher, he ended up in my class, my first teaching position. So things like that have been happening my whole life, kind of showing me, yes, you're on the right path. This is what you're supposed to be doing. But my parents were probably my biggest cheerleaders. Unfortunately, they both passed away, but they knew that, I had this idea. I didn't at that point know what it was going to look like. And I remember one of the last things my dad said to me before he passed away was, "Don't wait. Like, I know you love teaching, and I know, you know, that's been your whole life, but there's other things out there I know you want to do. So don't wait till it's too late." And that's
Mm.
really what pushed me to say, "Okay, I'm going to do it." And I feel, I feel both of their presence here in the shop, and through the whole journey. And I'm hoping that they would be proud of what we created here. You know,
Oh boy,
just
would
wish they
they,
could be here to see it.
right? I've gotten to be there once myself. I can't wait to have an event there. Um, so a couple questions I'm going to ask you, but one thing I was thinking of, I'm looking here. When you think of the parents and your employees, can you? describe a little of what they're telling you about their experience working for
Yes.
you?
Yes. It's funny because in the I tried to set up everything the way any other business would. So I when I finally announced that I was going to start hiring, um, I required them to come in for an in-person interview and an job application and references and the whole nine yards. And what was really what made me feel really good was the students that I had as a teacher came into the interviews, and some of them I hadn't seen in 5 years, whatever length of time. They came in, and I could see they remembered everything I taught them about, interviewing for a job. So that was great. But then when I decided who I was hiring, I sent formal letters in the mail to them, letting them know that I was offering them a job. And when that letter came, I got so many phone calls from parents saying, I mean, they were ecstatic and they were crying, and because
Mm,
the parents and the employee never thought they would have a job. They just never thought that this would happen. And I've really tried to keep them all, through the journey of planning this, to keep them in the loop of what we're doing and to have decision making, opportunities. And so everybody here feels like this is their business. It's not my business. It's all of our business. And the initial thought was I was going to bring them in and train them and then have move them out and bring another group in, but nobody wants to leave here. Everybody is so happy here, and the parents feel safe. They know who I am, and they know there's a lot of trust, and so it's just it's we're like a family. We really are. We become
mm.
like a family.
One of the questions I was asked is, um, I know you had said early on when you were in the program, finances were kind of tough for you. What happened for you? What's happened for you in terms of learning the financial part? And how do you feel about finances now in terms of
I'm
being there?
I'm I've become more comfortable with it. Because there was a lot I had to learn. There was a lot of transfer over from teaching to some of the stuff I do here, but the financial part of it, there wasn't. So that's what the program was really, really instrumental with helping me sort through that and learn that. And now I feel much more comfortable. And, I've brought on a couple of people to help me. I have a person who is a semi-retired CFO, and he's now my CFO, and he's, for free. He's just, very invested in in our mission. And then the sister of the young man who I became a teacher for, she is a bookkeeper, so she's my bookkeeper, and so I have some good people on my team. Um, but I've also become more confident myself, in handling all that.
Another question we have is for someone looking to hire their first differing abilities employee, what would you want them to understand or do before if they don't take your course and don't get a part of your movement,
Well, if they're local, I would say come into the shop and,
right? Anywhere
and
in New York, drive to Sleepy Coffee too.
get to see firsthand, but I would just, I would just say that to be open-minded and to, all we want is an opportunity. And look, not every opportunity is going to be a good match. I mean, that's just the way it is with everybody. But just to have the opportunity and, um, and give a person that chance, and we're there. We will be there to, if it's somebody around here, we will be there to support them and help them learn whatever it is they need to learn. I would just say, just have an open mind and don't judge somebody by what you see until you get to know them.
Powerful. You built something with a really strong mission, but also a real business, right? Uh,
Mhm.
how do you balance impact and financial sustainability?
Whew. Um, that's a fine line. I guess, like I said before, I've had to learn that I can't do everything, and that I have to kind of delegate and rely on other people who have talents in certain areas. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Um, I think they go hand in hand. I think, every time we do something, we do an event or something, we try to have some kind of an impact. Yeah, and have it kind of circle back to what our mission is. Um,
And then how are you looking at the financial, like how do you make financial decisions in terms of impact versus what it's going to cost us versus what it's going to make us? And what is driving the financial sustainability of Sleepy Coffee too right now?
well, being that we're a nonprofit, I have a board of directors, and so um, all those kinds of decisions go through the board. Um, and I have a really talented board, and they all have different expertise in different areas. Um, so that's really, that's the first line is there. And really at this point, we kind of look at things, is this going to be financially good for us in terms of, bringing revenue in and getting our message across? Or, some things we've said, we had somebody that wanted to partner with us, and we just weren't going to get the financial, you know, end that we wanted. So we backed out of that. So I think we're really looking at those things more carefully now,
Hmm.
and we're a little bit more choosy about what we do.
Hmm.
Um,
So for someone that feels stuck in a job, or someone that just feels like they're not doing what they were born to do, or is there more, or they've thought that there is more, what would you say to that individual today, Cam?
again, don't ignore that feeling. And whatever it is that is that does interest them, maybe go volunteer somewhere, maybe go, shadow somebody, to see if that kind of whatever that
Mm.
is would be something, you would like to do. I mean, I would like test the waters a little bit. I know there are some friends of mine that don't have a full blown business like I do, but they're doing things on the side. There's a local teacher around here who has started a little sourdough business out of her kitchen, and so she's kind of, and so we had a little launch for her here. So I would say don't ignore it, and just, try it on a smaller scale and see how it feels. Um, and I, I also think, let's trust your gut, because I think I knew, like, when it was time. Like, I didn't think I would, like, clearly feel that or know that, but I did when that time finally came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does success look like now to you compared to before?
Success to me looks like um, a packed house here on a weekend, with everybody enjoying themselves and putting their phones down and talking to each other, and watching my staff behind the counter or wherever they are in the shop just be the rock stars that they are. And I'm so
Mm.
proud of them. I'm so proud, that I have a sign in the shop that says prove them wrong. And I really feel like they've proven everybody wrong. Like, whatever misconception you had, it's gone. And so I'm just, their success is my success, really, when I watch them.
Well, I'd love to wrap this up by you saying anything that you feel like you haven't had the opportunity to say, and an invitation for people to come visit you.
Well, I would love for people to come visit. We're located in Sleepy Hollow, New York, and there really is a Sleepy Hollow. I don't know if I would ask you to come in October because it's insane around here. You won't get near the place or any place. Um, but I would just say, it's anybody. I'm nobody special. Like I just feel like if you're willing to work hard and you're willing to, take some risks and be fearless, you can do whatever it is, you want to do. And I'm living proof of it. I didn't know anything about becoming a business owner, but I am one now. And you've taught me, Pam, that I call myself a CEO because I didn't do that before. Um, but I would say, don't wait. I am happier than I've ever been. And I was very happy as a teacher, but there's something about when you have your own place that you've built from the ground up and you're proud of it. And there's nothing that makes me happier. This is my happy place. And it's with the people I love. It's all the things I love to do. And I feel like I'm on the next chapter of my life. And I never thought it would be so good.
Wow, that is so inspiring. So, to all of you, if you're at that intersection, the next chapter, and you're thinking, is there more? And there's something whispering to you, get over to howtostartsomething.com. Check it
Mhm.
out. That's who we help, just like we helped Kim. And we're so excited to be a small part of your big, big impact and success. And I can't wait to see the course for other employers so that they can be employing differing abilities and we can really start taking your impact and scaling it. Thank you for your time, Kim. I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to be over in the coffee shop again soon.
Thank you so much for everything you've done for me. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.